Hi, I'm Guy Lawrence, and you are listening to the Guy Lawrence podcast. If you're enjoying this content and you want to find out more and join me and come further down the rabbit hole, make sure you head back to guylawrence.com.au. Awesome, guys. Enjoy the show. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Guy.
It's greatly appreciated, mate. Greatly appreciated.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Now, one question I ask everyone on the show. Let's say you're in Australia, you're at the barbecue, and a complete stranger comes up to you and says, "What do you do for a living?" What would you say?
I turn people on to the power and the potential of the breath. I'm a missionary for the breath. I'm a missionary for breathing. It's my passion. It's my profession. And you're not likely to get out of a conversation with me without talking about breathing.
Yeah, and I would love to have that conversation. Well, we're about to have that today, so we'll see where it goes. It's amazing. And you know what interests me about the breath, Dan, is that I spend a lot of my life looking outward to make change. And, and the penny finally started to drop in my mid-30s, and I started to look inward more, I guess, where true transformation, I believe, comes. But it took me a long time to really get it when it came to breath work kind of thing. My interpretation, I just didn't connect any dots to any power of it at all, and I'm curious to know what led you into looking at the breath in the first place, because I know you've been looking at it a long time.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons is that it's right under our nose. It's so basic. It's so obvious. We go right past it. We go right over it on our search for, energy and mindfulness and self-healing abilities and so on. So it's often not until we sit still that kind of obvious, subtle things begin to emerge and become more obvious. And breathing is meditation. When you're breathing consciously, you are meditating. So a lot of people tell me, I really can't meditate. I tried meditating on it. Well, you know what? If you focus on your breath as you're breathing in, you focus on your breath as you're breathing out, you just meditated for the cycle of one breath. So breathing brings a lot of things home. Breathing makes a lot of things. For some people, it's the spark that really sets them off on their path. And for other people, it's that missing piece that when they bring it in, like everything comes together around it. So, and I've worked with people on all ends of the spectrum. People just go, breathing, who cares? And we just do it. What is there to learn? And I've worked with a lot of very seasoned breath workers, breath masters, Stig Severinsen, Wim Hof, who you mentioned, a good friend. And so people who have a breathing practice, that's what I love, because a little tweak, a little adjustment, they can really parlay that into a big, huge advantage.
Yeah.
And so, I've always been passionate about the breath as long as I can remember. I have a book called Just Breathe. And in the introduction, I talk about how, it was in kindergarten. I had my awakening to the breath in kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
And then through life, episodes and events kept coming back. They kept sticking my nose back in it. And I look back on my life, and every job I've ever had, every work I've ever done has had something to do with breathing, even before I had it as a real conscious focus.
Got it. Wow. So it's always been in you, essentially.
Yeah. It's an obsession. It's a mission. It's a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's amazing. I was curious as well, because I looked at your resume, and you've worked with some it's incredibly successful people. And I always hear the word peak performance, next level of excellence kind of thing. And, and Tony Robbins and Mark Divine are people that jumped to my mind, because I actually interviewed Mark last year as well, Navy SEAL, incredible guy. And I look at what these guys are doing in the world, and I aspire to that. And I just think, wow, they are. And there's a big part of breathing comes into that realm as well. And again, I couldn't connect the dots. So what is it about breathing and how it affects the body and how we can use it to, I guess, excel in our lives?
Well, when you get a handle on your breath, you're getting a handle on your awareness. and you're getting a handle on your energy. And if you channel and focus your awareness and your energy, something always happens. And our energy tends to be scattered. You know, we tend to put energy here, put energy there, put energy here. And when you scatter your creative energy like that, it's really hard to be creative. Breathing allows us to gather our attention, our awareness, and gather our energy. And then we realize, whoa, we have a certain power emerges, let's say. I can remember early in my martial arts training, in Aikido, I started with Aikido as a teenager, and one of the principles was one-pointedness. When you bring body and mind together in one point, a force emerges that won't emerge if your body's one way doing something and your mind is somewhere else. But as soon as mind and body come together, a real natural force emerges. We accomplish things that can surprise us. Well, the breath is that third piece. When you bring mind, body, and breath together, an even greater force emerges. And so people like Tony Robbins, I mean, he understands that. He's been conscious of his breathing. He observes breathing in other people. He's learned enough to know that breathing gives away our emotional state, our psychological state. It tells us kind of like where you're at. And I spent my whole life reading breathing patterns and associating breathing patterns with emotional states and psychological states. And there are certain breathing patterns that are associated with very high states. You mentioned Mark Divine. He teaches box breathing. And I'm sure you're aware of course, and a lot of people are, but very quickly, box breathing is let's use the number 4, but you inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. Like that. And I love that he's been doing box breathing. He was doing box breathing for 15 years or so and brought it into Navy SEAL training and was really responsible for moving the needle a little bit in that community around meditation, which originally they said, meditation, who needs it? And so he called it concentration training. And they go, oh, concentration training. Yeah, we need that. So he knew how to get it in. And the same thing with yoga. They go, yoga, schmoga, all these macho, airy-chested guys. They go, whoa. So he called it somatic movement. Okay, that has a little more of a modern ring to it. That sounds like something that's useful. So, Mark was really good at knowing how to get in the cracks and finally, make it okay, let's say, to meditate, and make it okay to do yoga if you're a Navy SEAL. And you can't argue with the benefits that when you get your breathing under control, you control your arousal, you control your focus, you control your physiology, you control your emotional state. And so it's a no-brainer. If you're dropped out of a helicopter in the middle of who knows where, and none of the intelligence is right, and there's 500 guys heading your way that aren't even supposed to be there, what do? Curl up in a ball, call your mother? No, you turn to your breath. You get a handle on your breath. And as soon as you do, things start to come into order and you're ready to take that next step. And so breathing is the next major key skill set that all high-performing individuals need to have. And if you've already achieved tremendous success without using the breath, whoa, you're in for a real treat, because for some people, it's like shifting gears, right? If I've been working with Tony, how do you maintain a certain kind of lifestyle or a certain energy state continuously without burning out, That's where the breath comes in.
Got it. It's incredible. And we don't need to jump out of a helicopter to feel stress.
No, read the newspaper.
Exactly. It's bombarded for us. And, and I'm speaking from my own experience here as well, Dan, and I'm sure I'll speak for a lot of listeners. And if they haven't made the connection to the power of the breath yet, and they're listening to this thinking, I want to investigate this more. There is so much out there, information on different breathing techniques and, what we should do. You got the Wim Hof method, you got pranayama, you mentioned Stig earlier, there's box breathing, there's holotropic, there's rebirth. It's just like, holy, right. I just want to improve my day or whatever. Like, where should one start?
Well, I look at breathing. I like Wim Hof's method or box breathing. if I'm an artist, those are two colors that I have on my palette, right? So, I mean, what kind of artist would have one color on their palette? So some people learn one yogic breathing exercise, or they learn some breathing technique for stress or anxiety or something, and then that's it. And they get enough benefit from just one kind of a practice. So what I've done over the years is I know just about everybody in the breathing world. It's hard to be in the breathing world and not bump into me. I've been at it since 1970. And
Wow.
so there are certain fundamentals. No matter what you're doing with breathing, there are certain basic things that come together. For example, just being conscious of your breath by itself. In order to practice any breathing exercise, you have to focus on your breathing. And the fact that you're focusing on your breathing means you're already getting a handle on your focus. So you're pulling energy away from where it would just go by itself in a scattered way, and you're focusing it. So no matter what kind of breathing exercise you do, it's going to have that benefit of increasing awareness of the breathing, and it has those benefits of mindfulness and concentration and focus training. So, and the other thing is bringing together awareness and breathing. That's one of what I call the cornerstones or the fundamentals in this practice. Just, we're breathing all the time, and 99% of the time we're not conscious of it. If you're just conscious of your breathing, just 95% instead of 99%, you're going to be conscious of your breathing at different times and in different moments. That's going to make a difference in what you're doing. So that by itself is one of the fundamentals. No matter what you're teaching, no matter what exercise you practice, one of the hidden fundamentals is a simple practice of what I call breath awareness. Developing the tendency, the habit, the ability to observe your breathing, to sense it, to feel it, to notice it when it changes. How am I breathing when I'm stuck in traffic? How am I breathing when someone is insulting me? How am I breathing when I'm having an orgasm? How am I breathing when I'm struggling with a math problem? And if we could turn to our breath in those moments, we would find a key to help us get through that moment. We'd plug into some energy. We would have a shift in our perception, and it would serve whatever we're doing. So breath awareness is one of those things. And if you want to know where to start, you start there. You just simply observe your breathing. You don't breathe in any special way. Don't do anything. Just become the witness, become the observer. It's what the Buddha was doing when he became the Buddha. And so just watching, breath is coming in, yeah, breath going out. What are the feelings? What are the sensations? Where are they? What muscles do you use? How are you breathing? And just that witnessing aspect it has all the meditative benefits, and you're starting to finally look at something that is really important. And you might have breathing habits and breathing reactions that are not serving you. And most people, that's exactly it. When they get under stress, the way they breathe actually creates more stress. It gets in their way. So if they could observe how they're breathing in those moments of stress, the next step would be to make some adjustment in how you're breathing. So everything starts with awareness. And in breathing, that's definitely is the first and the most important fundamental, is simply becoming more conscious of your breathing, more aware of your breathing. Spend time, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, sometime, simply doing nothing but paying attention to your breathing. And the benefits are going to, you're starting to put yourself in a place where the benefits are going to come pretty quickly.
Totally.
The second fundamental, I said, where to start? The second place to start is to learn how to use your breath to relax. I see this relax sign behind you. If relaxation is an energetic skill, and most people haven't really truly developed this ability we have to relax quickly, to relax deeply, to relax totally, to relax in situations where before you couldn't relax. Breath is the key to increasing relaxation, deepening relaxation, improving our ability to let go. Let go of fear, let go of pain, let go of thoughts that are going around in your head. Don't be surprised if you haven't learned how to let go of your breath. Don't be surprised if you can't let go of pain or anxiety or thoughts that are driving you crazy. You haven't learned the energetic skill of relaxation. So that's where the second fundamental. I say, where to start? Practice sighs of relief. Practice letting the exhale go, snapping the exhale loose, setting the exhale free, because the breath is what gets jammed up in us before everything else starts to get jammed up in us. And if you can get the breath flowing, your thoughts flow better, your body flows better, emotions can flow, energy can flow. So the relaxation is such a key, and I pound on those basics of awareness and relaxation. And the third is energy. If you want to start somewhere, start with an exercise that gives you a sense of having more energy, that wakes up more energy. I see that in your morning ritual, you practice that Kapalbhati. That's an example of an energizing breathing technique. And it's unarguable. You practice for a couple of minutes and you feel more energized. And there are lots of others, and maybe even better ways to energize. But those I'd say, where do you want to start? Start by developing more breath awareness. Start by learning to use your breath to release stress, tension, to relax more, and learn how to use your breath to give yourself energy when you're starting to, sink or slide, to be able to bring yourself back into the zone. So that's where I would start.
I absolutely love it. Like the first one, focusing on the breath, you're present, so you're not running on a program, and you can become more aware, which is amazing. The second one, you triggered a question as well. You said about a sigh of relief. Yeah. So should that be like literally through our day, we lift our shoulders and just drop and let it all out?
Yep. Imagine yourself as a Shakespearean actor. Your part is to go out on the stage. You have no words in the play, but you have to give yourself such a delicious sigh of relief that the whole audience goes, ah, right? It's catchy. Because we're talking to our ancient brain. And you see, most people hold their breath 100 times a day, 1,000 times a day, putting a key in a door, and they hold their breath. Trying to remember something, and they hold their breath. Getting up from a chair, they lock their breath and get up. When you hold your breath, that's an emergency signal. And that ancient lizard brain doesn't care. We're just trying to remember something. We're putting a key in the door. We're just getting up. It doesn't care why you're holding your breath. All it knows is breath holding is an emergency signal. And so you're actually making your body think it's in danger. And so to send a different signal to the body, we deliberately give ourselves sighs of relief. You expand and inhale twice as big as usual, and then you release the exhale, and you very deliberately release muscles along with that. And you build that into your system so it becomes a strategy that your system actually takes on by itself. So if you start to get tense without even thinking about it, if you've been practicing, a breath is going to come. It's going to lift that tension and release it, because you've trained your system to take that on as a strategy. Yeah. So I encourage people to take 1,000 sighs of relief a day if you dare. That's only 1 or 2% of the amount of breaths that you're given every day. So it's not that much when you put it into context. If you breathe 20,000 times a day, if you want to apply 1% of those breaths towards your awakening, towards your empowerment, not a big investment, but it sure shows up quick, because that sigh of relief it's an energetic opening. That's the expansion on the inhale. And so you're not just expanding your chest and your breathing cavity, you're expanding energetically. And sometimes that's what we need to do. We need to just open and expand. We're kind of stuck on something. And then the second part of that is the release, the letting go, which is that sigh of relief. The body loves that. And here's an interesting thing. There's a study they did at Virginia Medical Center this past year. It's only 6 months old or 8 months, the study, that we sigh about every 5 minutes or 12 times an hour. And so nature makes us do that just for survival. If we weren't taking a bigger breath than normal from time to time, we would lose our respiratory capacity over time. So nature doesn't trust us to remember to take a deep breath from time to time. So we're hardwired to take an inhale that's twice as big as normal, and that's what produces what we recognize as a sigh of relief. And it makes us do that so we hyperinflate the alveoli and we don't lose our respiratory capacity. But that's just for survival. The people I'm interested in working with are interested in something a little more than survival. So if nature makes us do something to survive, let's double down on nature. Let's do it twice as often. Let's do it more often. And let's double down on nature.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm going to try that today. Actually, I'll be dropping into sighs.
Sigh, yeah. And you remember a sigh, they have to define, medical scientists need a good definition. I always think, and most people think of a sigh as the exhale portion, but that's the result of what medical people define as a sigh, because the definition of a sigh in medical terms is actually related to the inhale, and it's an inhale that is twice as big as your tidal volume of your average breath. That extra expansion is what produces what we experience as a sigh, that extra relaxing exhale. We can do that ourselves. We don't have to wait for nature. We just deliberately expand a little more, take an inhale that's twice as big as usual, and then deliberately let go. And now we're applying something that nature has hardwired in. Everybody already knows how to do it, so you don't need to be taught. You just need to be reminded to do it more often, and you're on the road.
Totally. And one of the biggest penny drops for me along the way, doing lots of different work, was that even though my analytical mind was saying, yeah, I've got this, I'm in control, my body was sending very different signals, and there's like a misalignment, and I didn't realize how much that was ruling the roost in my thoughts, actions, and behaviors. And what you're saying right there is that, hey, we can take control back of that and start to
and relaxation becomes a source of energy. It becomes a gateway to accessing more energy. The thing about box breathing, if you look at it closely, you control the inhale, you control the pause, you control the exhale, you control the pause. It's control, 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 control. There's a limit to how much we can control. And when we're stuck in a corner, when you're caught in the jaws of a tiger, it doesn't matter how much control you have anymore. It doesn't matter how strong you are. You're locked in the jaws of a tiger. There's only one thing. And an animal, what does an animal naturally do when it finally realizes, okay, struggling ain't going to work? It surrenders. It melts. And if you're a cat and a mouse in that game, and you're that smart little mouse who suddenly just went limp and relaxed, the cat kind of gets bored and it lets you go, and now you can get up and run your ass off. So, relaxation allows us to access energy that we can't access by pumping ourselves up more. It's like, I work with Tony. He lowers blood pressure, by 15 points within a week just by bringing relaxation into his breathing practice. So, and sometimes it's something very subtle, like you're tensing your jaw while you inhale. And that tightening of the jaw or the tightening of the facial muscles every time you inhale, that's called dyskinesis. That's actually there's already a medical term waiting out there for that phenomenon. And so people don't realize they might have subtle habits and patterns in their breathing. And so they're reinforcing stress, or they're narrowing their energy in some way. My mantra on breathing is open and expand, relax and let go. That's the inhale. That's the exhale.
Huh. Yeah. There's never a creative moment comes from being stressed. And right.
Wow, that's the hard way to go about it. If you manage to be creative when you're under stress, yeah. Wow, imagine how creative you could be if you weren't under stress.
If you're relaxed, right? I often think about that so much. And stress can become our new baseline, our new homeostasis, and we don't even know it anymore.
Yeah. What's his name? Hans Sale, who coined the term stress. In the later years of his life, he said, oops, because English was not his first language. What he really meant, had he looked up the actual words, the definitions, he would have used the word strain. He didn't mean stress. Stress is required for growth. Stress is required. Without stress, we would never accomplish or grow anything. But that's not the same as strain. And so he finally said, oops, that's why they had this whole conversation about good stress and bad stress, because it wasn't the right term of what he was trying to talk about.
I love it. I've not heard that before. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The question that came into there while we were having that discussion, how would you start your morning? Let's say you're a little bit sleep deprived or something and you want to energize and you wake up, or what would you do on a typical morning?
As soon as I'm aware that I'm awake, I'm aware that I'm breathing. I mean, and in fact, as soon as I'm aware that I'm breathing, I'm aware that I'm awake. They've kind of come together. Breathing and awareness now are pretty much one and the same thing for me. And it kind of, it confirms something that I observed. I've been traveling for 40 years, more than that. I've had my hands on over 120,000 people in 58 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, I hit my 58th country just now when I went to Cuba. And one of the things that, so see, there was an example, right? I got stuck in my thoughts, my words, and automatically, without even thinking about it, I expanded, I relaxed, and then, now I'm back in the flow. So, it's like the breathing is this natural resource we have, and we just haven't explored it. And the more we explore it, the more we find in there to play with, to work with. So I must have got off on a different path. Go back to your question.
in the morning. So if you're feeling
what do I do? Right.
a bit flat.
What I observed is that the most spiritual, I see my path as a spiritual path. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people think spirituality is kind of woo-woo and stuff, but when you think of the spirit of a warrior, the spirit of an artist, I'm talking something very fundamental about who we really are. We're body, mind, and spirit. And so this sort of ephemeral aspect of ourselves, which is actually an essential aspect, spiritual. The most spiritual people I've ever met have been the most conscious. And the most conscious people I've ever met have been the most spiritual. And so for me, to be conscious is to be spiritual. To be spiritual is to be conscious. And so in the morning, I am awakened by my breath. I breathe as I wake up. My relationship to my breath is intimate enough that the flow of life through me, it's telling me things. And I read through your morning ritual. After you do your Kapalbhati, you sit and you just observe. How am I feeling? What kind of thoughts am I having? What's happening in my body? That's this meditative presence that you were talking about. So I wake up to that. I wake up with that. I wake up in that. And so depending on how I'm feeling, the next thing I would do would probably be combined stretching. I would have an urge to pandiculate. There's that term, pandiculation. Not quite stretching, but it's why dogs, before they get up, they all do yoga. That's where they arch their spine, they stretch, they put their legs in front, they yawn. That's pandiculation. That's nature. The movements that way of the body tell the brain that, oh, we're getting moving now. So the brain shifts gears and it does stuff. So I would do gentle stretching. I would do some moving. And I may be in a meditative practice for quite a while, depending on if I have a schedule or not. It's a beautiful state to just be in. Mm-hmm. And many times my lifestyle and my schedule allows me the luxury to just meditate for a few hours if I want, not always. But to whatever extent I can, I like to sit in that space of just being aware, conscious of my breathing, conscious of the place around me, conscious of the air on my skin, conscious of my heart beating, conscious of energy flowing. And then it's like you're moved to do something. You suddenly have a hit, and it's a full body, and you can't resist it. You suddenly find yourself doing it because it's something that needs to be done in that moment. So without even thinking or planning, you start finding that you're just doing what you need to do at the right time, all by yourself, all by itself.
It's very different to many people that I certainly used to know in the city, and that where the alarm bell goes off, you're into panic, you hit the snooze, you get up again, you rush to the bathroom, you wolf your breakfast down, you jump in a car, you sit in traffic for an hour, then you got That's a very different way of waking up, isn't it? You know?
It is, and it's a habit of running on adrenalized energy, which is the work that I'm doing with Tony and many high performers. You can do that. You can run on adrenalized energy, but it's not sustainable, and it's not anywhere near as beneficial and useful as genuine energy. Breathing connects us to genuine energy, so we're not having to run on adrenalized energy.
Yeah, love it, love it. A question I got for you, especially like with all your experience, with the amount of people you just said you've worked with, which is quite incredible, and from what you've seen over the years, what's your thoughts on, do we store trapped emotions in our body?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then,
no doubt.
Because I've certainly had conversations where people don't feel that way. And the other question is, how can the breath sort of help us move through that?
Yeah, memories are stored in the body. I mean, the body is the subconscious mind, you know. When you breathe, and if you just expand your breath more than normal and release and relax your breath more than normal, you heighten what's happening with normal breaths. And you become more aware of it. The stretch receptors in your lungs, that's pleasurable. When those stretch receptors are firing off, that's organic pleasure. And when you release and relax the breath, that's organic pleasure. So we're like coming home to the body when we breathe. Breathing awakens heart intelligence. We have body intelligence. Breathing awakens body intelligence. We have heart intelligence. Breathing awakens heart intelligence. And the mind intelligence, we got that. We're trained in that from when we're kids. So that we don't need as much practice at awakening our mind intelligence. There's plenty out there already working on that. But body intelligence and heart intelligence, you bring that together with mind intelligence and you have genuine wisdom. You have a higher level of intelligence, let's say.
Okay. So if somebody would be listening to this that might be feeling trapped, lonely, depression, stuck, like past trauma, and they're not looking at breath work, should breath work be something they should go, okay, this is something I really need to start evolving?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I did a really great breakthrough study with depression in the Soviet Union back in the 90s, and when I was going to Russia all the time. And there are certain breathing patterns that a person cannot display them or perform them if they're depressed. If they're depressed, they can't breathe a certain way. If they breathe a certain way, they can't be depressed. So when you open and expand and you muster up the intention to take in a bigger breath than usual, you're already lifting off some of that heaviness that contributes or even causes to depression. So, and there are two breathing patterns. One of them I explained was the sigh of relief. If we work backwards from somebody who's locked up in pain or locked up and paralyzed by fear, take the extreme situation.
Yeah.
What can they not do in those moments with their breath? That if they could do, they would get free of the pain or free of the panic. One is the ability to expand and stretch their chest with a full inhale. When someone's locked up in pain, the breath is locked up. And when they're locked up in fear, the breathing is locked up. And as long as the pain and the fear is there, the breathing is locked up. And as soon as you flow the breath, something happens to the pain, something happens to the fear. So the sigh of relief is one of the things we train into people because it's one of the things they cannot do. It's one of the breathing patterns they cannot access when they are jammed up, stressed to the max, in a panic, or locked up in pain. And have you ever seen anybody who is locked up in terrible pain breathe like this? You're like, no. And if they could breathe like that, could they possibly be locked up in pain? So it comes down to something really simple. It comes down to practicing a sigh of relief and using it on purpose in increasingly difficult situations so that you can actually access it when you got nowhere to go, when you're at the end of your rope. And the second is circular breathing. Circular breathing is a continuous breathing pattern where there are no pauses or gaps between the breaths. This is also a pattern that's impossible or very difficult to access when you're under intense pain, pressure, fear, and so on. You know, when the breath is sticky and jammed up like that, it's lacking this flow. And when you restore the flow in the breath, you get out of certain stuck states. It's like oil and water. You can't maintain a continuous, smooth, circular breathing pattern and stay in stuck, tense states. It's very difficult to do, if not impossible.
Got it. And a last question before we change gears. So just to get my head around it for people as well, would it be safe to say then there's a toolkit of different styles of breaths, patterns and works out there that we can learn for different situations and need? You know, it could be, like you said, stress. We might need to energize ourselves. We might need to relax ourselves. We might want to get into a meditative state. Like there's all these tools that we can learn and go, right, that's what I apply here, that's what I apply there, and so forth. Would that be fair to say?
It's exactly right. You have breathing that you do when you need to focus like a laser. You have breathing that you do when you want to expand your consciousness to include, you want situational awareness, for example. There are breathing techniques to wake yourself up, calm yourself down. Yeah, exactly. It's like having these natural tools right under our nose.
And having the structure. Yeah, because I've been, for the research of this podcast, I've been listening to your book on Audible, Just Breathe, as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. And you break it down beautifully. And I'd recommend anyone to check it out. Absolutely. I was like, wow, there's so much to this.
Yeah, well, and we're about to launch something even bigger than my book project, which is this app project. It's called Breath. Yeah, it's called Breath Tech. And we got company here.
The neighbors are here.
Yeah, it's called Breath Tech. It's going to be launched within a week, I would say. We're so very close. 2 years in the making. And it's actually a complete training in breath mastery. Because the way I teach breathing is we have different paths. We're all on a different path, and there are different paths in breath work. For example, one path is for physical health. Some people, that's their goal, that's their focus. They have physical issues. Well, here's 10, 15 breathing exercises you can do for physical health.
Beautiful.
The next is for psycho-emotional health, which we call heart intelligence. The next is for personal growth. Another path is for sports and fitness. Another path is for business edge, business performance. Another one is creativity, creative performers, music performers, any kind of creative performers. And the last one is spirituality. So there are 8 paths. And so the app is designed so you pick your path. Here are the cornerstone exercises. Learn these first. How to breathe for more awareness, more mindfulness. How to breathe for more relaxation. How to breathe for more energy. You get those under your belt, and now you can pick a path.
Got it.
And I also have what's called like a series, what I call the basic series. No matter which path you're going to take, no matter why you may want to apply breathing, you're a martial artist, you're a runner, whatever it is, here's 7 or 8 breathing techniques. Learn these first, and then you'll zoom down your path a lot quicker. The app is laid out to just take people step by step from student to apprentice to teacher to expert to master. It's pretty cool. I'm really psyched about it. It's been a much bigger job and unbelievably complicated and difficult when somebody 2 years ago said, hey, let's do a breathing app, Dan. I said, sure, that's a good idea. Holy cow. I have tremendous respect for people with these technical abilities these days.
It's amazing. A very good friend of mine is building an app as part of his project, and I see what he goes through every day, and I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, a lot of work.
When's that app coming out, Dan?
Oh, they're threatening me that it's within days. So,
wow.
My partners are in South Africa, where I'm going there May 12th. They said, it'll absolutely be here before you put your feet on the ground. And they think it's actually just maybe a few days away. They had to do some change a server, I don't know. But
Got it. Well, please let me know when it's out. Yeah, that sounds
within
brilliant.
days. If you go to breathtech.com,
Okay.
and I'll send you a link to the app as soon as it's out. It should be within a few days.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. Really
so, for the last part of the podcast, I got certain questions that I ask everyone on the show. And one is, what has been one of your low points in your life you've had, but later in life it turned into be a blessing?
Wow. Going to jail, I guess, when I was in the military, I ended up in the military prison. I had a tremendous awakening. I could say that was at the time, that was the lowest point of my life, and it turned out to be one of the best things ever happened to me. I write about it in my book a little bit. Yeah, I mean, that was both the low point, and it was also, it cracked me open in some way. You know, when you hit bottom with anger, when you hit bottom with drugs, when you hit bottom with anything, now you're at a place where, you know, you can go. And maybe the lower you go, the higher you bounce afterwards. Maybe that's just one of those physics phenomenon. But I would say that's it. And even more serious, and it's more recent, my son, who is only 42 years old, passed away this past year.
Oh,
that's going to be the worst experience I've ever had. I mean, the most difficult to bear. But I've written quite a lot about that, and how the breath really helped me process such a painful, you know, experience, and how quickly we feel we can recover from things like that. And so the breath has showed up for me at those times when I really, really needed it.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. If you could have dinner with anyone tonight, at any time frame, anywhere in the world, past or present, who would it be?
Nelson Mandela.
Oh.
I think he's the closest thing to a Jesus we've had on the planet in a long time. How can you be in prison for 25 years and have absolutely no resentment towards your prison, you know, towards the people who put you there? He wasn't just pretending to be nice. The guy had a deep awakening, and he had this ability he knew the difference when he was thinking for himself or from himself, and he was thinking as his people. That's such an amazing ability. I'm sad that I read everything about him. I love the guy. I thought, you know, I mean, that place could have blown up, you know, and he, with his genuine presence and his real, you know, genuine who he was, is what made the difference. And, you know, historically, it's like he'd be the guy I would love to spend time with him.
That's amazing. Yeah, what a great night that would be. Matt, one question that popped in that I was been meaning to ask you earlier, because it keeps coming up in my daily life, and that's about when we just breathe in a relaxed state through our day. When we just, you know, should we breathe through our nose or mouth? Or does it matter? Well,
yeah, the nose is meant to breathe through.
Okay.
Has hairs that filter dust, mucous membranes trap microscopic particles. It even has turbinates that make the air spiral. You know, why would nature make that happen? So breathing through the nose, and all the research around nitrogen oxide produces nitrogen oxide. Yeah, nose is meant to breathe through, but you can't laugh through your nose. You can't cry through your nose. You can't communicate through your nose. So we need to practice nose breathing and mouth breathing. I would say to be conscious of when I should nose breathing, mouth breathing. Public speakers, Tony Robbins, different people, they develop the habit of being mouth breathers if they don't consciously take a breath through their nose when they're talking. They could easily, radio DJs, people like that, they develop the habit of mouth breathing. So we need to get comfortable with both. Genuinely, you know, basically the nose, the default.
Yeah. Yeah, I just sparked it. I just thought I got to get it number in before we wrap up the show. Is there anything else you would like to leave for our listeners, for them to ponder on with everything we've covered today, Dan?
maybe one little piece of it is about mouth breathing, because different shapes of the breath, a U-shaped breath, ah, those shapes and those sounds affect different organs, affect different emotions, produce different states, create different tendencies. So playing with our breath, I call what I do breath work. It's too bad there isn't a word, breath play. People go, well, it's already weird enough, but maybe the attitude, the way we approach breathing, like a child, like curiosity. What can I do with it? How does it feel? Are there details in the breathing I've never observed? Because maybe some of those details are really important. What are my breathing habits? What are my patterns? I want to be conscious of those. It's part of the know thyself path. When you know how you breathe and you know what your breathing reactions are, you're learning about yourself. The breath is a language, and the way we breathe is giving us information about who we are, how we feel, what's happening inside of us. So developing this intimate relationship with the breath keeps us ahead of a lot of things, and it expands our awareness of a lot of things, and it keeps bringing us back home into our body where we belong, and not up in our head where most people live.
Yeah, love it, mate. Love it. And where can I send people to, for everyone listening to this? They go, you know what? I want to learn more about this. Where can they go?
Go to breathmastery.com. Breathmastery.com. I had that for almost 20 years. I predate Google. We've been around for quite a while. And there are a lot. There's an archives of, I've written a monthly report on breathing since I started in 1976. And I've written a monthly report on breathing every month since 1976. And a lot of them are filed there. There's an archives of articles and monthly reports that I've sent out. There's a lot of there's free videos to watch. There's exercise to practice. Breathmastery.com is a good place to start. Yep.
And beautiful. And do you have a program as well that people can tap into?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the link is on Breath Mastery. We're recreating that Breath Mastery site. So if you look at it today and look at it in 2 weeks, you'll probably see something very, very different.
Cool.
We have a course we've been running called Breathwork Fundamentals course. I've taken like 40 years of training and just notched out where do we start and what's the most important things to really learn. And it's called the Breathwork Fundamentals course. And I know the website by heart. It's o2collective.com/p/fundamentals.
Wow.
And I can type that out for you at some point, but the link is on the website, breathmastery.com. But I'm steering people to that fundamentals course because we're just getting such great feedback from it, and it's great. It's really and I had a lot of great help in putting it together. I have to acknowledge all the people who really helped make it happen.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you for today. Thank you for your time, and thank you for bringing breathing and breath work to the mass awareness of people, because it seems to be gaining so much momentum. I'm hearing about it everywhere. Yep. People are tapping into the power of the breath. I use it every day, and it's been such an instrumental tool. And
I love it. And guys like me have been doing it for 40 years ago. Well, it's about freaking time.
I know. Well, look, thank you so much for your time today, Dan. That was absolutely epic, and no doubt you'll inspire many people.
Thank you. Listen, and maybe if we chat a little bit afterwards, I can put together a little package for your people, just like a little gift for any of your people. We could do something special like that. Maybe.
Totally.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.